All right, let's see if this is working. And I apologize if anyone's watching. I apologize for the delayed start to office hours today. It turns out that my streaming software updated but wasn't giving me the alert for the new updated terms of service. So I had to sort that out. Let's just check and see and make sure that you guys are seeing this. Because so far, I haven't been seeing it on the YouTube stream. Ah, there we are. We're live. Perfect. Excellent. Thank you for your patience to anybody who's been watching, and I'm just going to check and see who that is. I don't think we have anybody on the stream. Live dashboard. One watching, and that's me. Okay. All right. Well, thank you and welcome to anybody who's checking in on this later. What we're going to do with the online office hours is go for just half an hour unless somebody actually shows up, at which point I'll be here for the full hour. I also have office hours in Hollywood, and I've been holding them at Tiago, which is right on the corner of La Brea and Hollywood Boulevard. If anybody wants to meet me there and ask questions about independent film, you are more than welcome to. And I'm getting pretty busy, so if I don't start seeing folks at office hours sometime in the next week or two, I'm definitely going to have to drop either the streaming or the in-person office hours, and I might just move the in-person office hours back up to Hollywood. I think it's very important that I and other folks who are working in Hollywood make ourselves available to the audience and make ourselves available to other collaborators in the community, just purely for the sake of promoting community and for the sake of making sure that the example is set and that folks know that there are places to go for information. I think that's a good practice to be in. But if there are no takers, I'm definitely going to be looking at ways to scale it back over the next couple weeks, because I'm also doing in terms of community support, I'm doing a podcast right now with Dan Haggerty called the Loudmouth Report, and you can find it at 2Loudmouths on Twitter. And that is at the moment taking up a lot of time to set up. There's obviously productions. I have a theater show opening called The Dream Factory at the Stuart Rogers Studios in North Hollywood a week from this Friday. It'll be open for 2 weeks, but that's going to take some time. I want to make sure that I'm there for all the showings. And there's Declassified, and there's Quantum Theory. So there is a wealth of things to do, and I want to make sure that I'm available for all of it. So with that in mind, I encourage anybody who is listening and thinking, geez, I should check in. I should do one of these office hour events. Use it or lose it, folks. I will not be here forever. And since I'm sitting here and since I'm streaming on the internet, I'm wondering if there's anything I should talk about. I definitely have an 8-sided blog I want to do sometime in the next 2 or 3 days. I'm not going to jump right on it now because it's for the blog and it's a fairly focused idea that I think I should explore specifically in that format. So I'll talk a little bit about the Dream Factory. Basically, the Dream Factory is the story of 2 women who show up at the place where dreams are made, looking to build careers and basically looking for someone to open the doors and show them where the opportunities are and how to start the work. It's not that they're unwilling to work, it's that they don't necessarily have a plan of their own and they're sort of expecting there to be one when they get there. And the play begins when these 2 women are dragged by chains into a cell and locked to the wall and left there. And they don't understand why, very little gets explained to them. There's someone called the foreman who's in charge of locking them up and putting them in this room. And they don't have any idea what's going on beyond that, and all their questions are rebuffed, and their pleas are rebuffed, and they're left to kind of figure things out for themselves chained to this wall, and that's what they do. They start looking for answers, and they start looking for clues as to what's in store for them, and one of them is very intent on finding a way to escape, and the other one is very intent on figuring out what the plan actually is and why this is happening, so that she can take control of the situation that way. And I don't want to spoil the play for anybody, but things do get dire. And we have a fantastic cast. Tyler Seipel, who is an 8-sided player, is directing, and I wrote it for him. And I'm just getting to know a lot of the other folks in the production. It's all folks who work with the Stuart Rogers Ensemble. And it's a great bunch of actors, and I'm pleased to be serving them. So that's what's happening in the next couple weeks. And on top of that, as folks may or may not know, we've had some pretty surprising challenges with Declassified. I don't know why they're surprising, because it's a micro-budget, piece of art, and that's always a huge risk. The problem is when you're doing something for next to no money, something goes wrong, it doubles the budget because you have to fix it. And so something has gone wrong, and we're fixing it. There's a GoFundMe up, and you can find out about the GoFundMe on my Twitter at Tennyson E Stead, TennySonEstead. And if you check it out, I get into general detail, and I think that's really all that's necessary as far as the mishaps. The point is that we're in the process of hiring some new crew members. We want to make sure that they have all the resources they need to do their jobs effectively. We want to make sure that the end web series is every bit as excellent and every bit as thorough and specific as what we originally set out to create, and at the same time that we adapt to the changes that are coming our way and give new people entering the project the opportunity to express their creative voice themselves, instead of cramming the decisions and the consequences of those decisions that came before them down their throats and making it impossible for them to do what they know how to do and what they're good at. So I'm in the process of finding those people and finding that money. And in the meantime, I'm building the set for Declassified. For folks who don't have any idea what Declassified is, it's a web series about massive Cold War government projects, secret projects that were executed through this fictional government bureau called the Bureau of Applied Defense Development. And these are folks who have big ideas about nuclear weapons, big ideas about the space race, big ideas about drug testing on humans, and the possible breakthroughs that could be had there. All of the sort of pulp science fiction that was getting popular specifically in the 70s and 80s, but with a distinctly dangerous and dark government conspiracy undertone of threat. And the stories in Declassified, each season is the story of one project and one person or group of people who are trying to make this project work, despite the fact that it was basically conjured up to satisfy political ends, or it's the dream project of some guy who works at a defense contractor who got his pet senator to push it through, or it's just there to spend the money, or whatever the case may be. People actually have to step into these things and make the breakthrough happen and achieve the goal that's been set in front of them, and this is their story. So season 1 is about an astronaut who was selected out of his test pilot airbase at Edwards by the Bureau of Applied Defense Development to pilot an Apollo command module on a Saturn V that's been modified with nuclear rocketry, which is something they were working on in the 70s, to Titan, Saturn's moon of Titan. Now, there's no way we're getting an Apollo command module back, but the sort of conceit of the show is that if you were to take 2 crew members out of the picture and fill the entire command module with the life support needed, you could potentially sustain 1 person in space for the 8 years it's going to take to get them to Saturn and to Titan. And so that's what they do. And it's honestly, in terms of the motivations of the project itself, in terms of who thought of this and why, it's not the astronauts' problem, so it's not really explored by the show, but it was more or less to find out, can we do it? And if we can, we should know we can do it, because the space program is going to need that ammunition in its back pocket as we move out of the Apollo program and into the shuttle program, which is exclusively about low orbit flights. And we sort of give up our reach for the stars. We're going to need to know that we can, if and when the tools are there to do it again. So that's very much what Project Icarus was about. Project Icarus is the name of it. And, and here's this poor guy saddled with the toughest consequences of this whole situation, which are someone actually has to go and do this thing. Someone has to fly to Saturn and spend 8 years locked in a chair, surrounded by equipment with no room to move, and keep himself capable enough to complete the mission and keep the Icarus module working and capable of completing the mission for all that time by himself. And even as he puts distance between himself and Earth, and it starts to take a really long time for communications to get to Icarus and back, which means there's huge stretches of time where if he's asked a really important question or he needs help with something, he's not going to get it. And of course that raises doubts, and of course that drives you crazy. So how does he solve those problems? And or does he? And that's what season 1 of Declassified focuses on, is the answers to those questions. I think it's a great story. Gerard Marzelli is the ensemble member who's playing the astronaut. Wick Pierce is the astronaut's name. And I'm pretty excited to get it done. I think it's going to be a simple, very weird, very unusual science fiction project. And the other thing to keep in mind just is that this is all documentary footage. It's called Declassified because all the files, including the video archives of the Bureau of Applied Defense Development, are slowly being opened up to the public, and these videos are coming to light. So it's going to be distressed, it's going to be in black and white, it's going to have the look and feel of a transmission that was sent from really, really, really far away and captured by our antennas. So that's Project Icarus. And it's a fun project. It's really good. The other big thing that's going on in my life, apart from that and the finance and development process of quantum theory and the day job that I have and the finishing of the play and a spec script that I'm working on and a handful of other creative projects, is the beginning of my cognitive therapy with regards to my brain injury. Folks don't necessarily know this because I've been open about it, but I haven't necessarily brought it up in every single piece of content that I do, and it's the kind of thing that slips by people. I was on a set 3 years ago, almost 3.5 years ago, more than 3.5 years ago now, and I was hit in the head with a sword. And 2 days later, I was diagnosed with what's called a subdural hematoma and a severe concussion. And what that means in short form is that I'm very, very fortunate to be alive, and anybody in their right mind would expect a degree of brain damage. So what's been fortunate is that my decision-making abilities and my reasoning abilities are more or less completely unaffected. People have said that I'm still me, and I think that's true. But there are certainly a lot of things that have been affected. Most obviously, the way my brain communicates with my body, which sometimes creates vocal tremors. Sometimes I have hand tremors, and sometimes, well, my legs almost never work the way they used to. I can't run, but most of the time I can walk at a pretty good clip, and I use a cane. But there's a number of other sort of glitches in the system, and this is the first time I've had a professional sort of working through all the different cognitive processes that people do and figuring out which ones are glitchy and which ones aren't. And it's been exhausting. And I'm learning a lot about what my brain can and can't do now, and what kinds of things are tricky for me, and why certain things have been tricky for me, and where those problems actually are, and specifically what's making it tough for me. And that's great because it gives me a much higher degree of control over my environment, number one. Knowing what's going to cause me problems means I can either avoid it, or I can mitigate it, or I can prepare myself for it, or I can hand off responsibilities as needed, and just in general get in front of the problem instead of being surprised, not surprised, because at this point it's 3.5 years old, but blindsided, in the sense that I don't necessarily know what is going to cause me issues. That's great. And the other good thing is that I don't know if it's going to work yet, but we're starting to find out whether or not I can build my stamina in these regards. Part of the reason why I seem a little more low energy today is that I had a rigorous cognitive and speech therapy session today, and it definitely wiped me out. It's good, and I'm grateful to have the medical help. And so thanks, Obamacare. I'm definitely one of the people that would not be in the fortunate position I am if not for the Affordable Care Act. So I'm grateful for that. And that's occupying a lot of time and attention as well. That's been a big project for me. Oh boy, 6:52. I'm going to give us 8 more minutes, and if we don't have any folks showing up on the stream, I'm going to take off and come back next week. And I encourage folks, if they want to see office hours continue, just to show up. Make sure you're present, and ask me questions. I'm sitting here. I've got the chat stream open. I'm ready to talk. Ready to answer questions about independent film. Ready to answer questions about what we're doing at 8-Sided Films, and I'm ready to talk about what I know about film finance. I'm here for you. So what do we want to do with these last 7 minutes? The holidays are coming up, and I'm starting to sort of line up the projects that I'm going to be working on completing over the course of the holidays. One of the things that's been going on behind the scenes is that America Young, who's a friend of our company and a wonderful director and one of the finest human beings I've had the pleasure of meeting on this planet, is directing a documentary about how we have persevered and continued to build 8-Sided Films in the wake of my brain injury. And hopefully we're going to get the last bit of footage for the documentary by the holidays, so that when everybody goes away, I can dig in and start the technical post-production process and make sure that there's something to put out there to show folks and let them see what we've been doing all this time and how we've been doing it, and how as a community we've overcome such a challenging disability, because it is extremely challenging. And folks who are surprised that I'm out there writing and directing are not wrong. It's the kind of thing that probably should have stopped my career dead in its tracks, and there's a number of reasons why it hasn't, and a big part of it is the excellent support of the people I work with and the character of the people that I work with. And a big part of it too is that I wasn't willing to let them down. I still had responsibilities, brain injury or no, and I had every intention of meeting those responsibilities, and I am meeting those responsibilities, and I've become a better filmmaker, and I've become a better person, as a result of all this. So that should be coming soon. It is coming soon. Hopefully I'll get to work on it over Christmas and put the actual post-production work behind me. So that's part of it. I'm gonna stop picking at my mic. I'm also hoping to finish a screenplay that I started, which I don't want to talk too much about because it's a spec screenplay and it's not necessarily for 8-sided films. It's just for, well, I might be seeing representation at the beginning of the year, and I want to make sure that I've got new material to throw their way to keep them invested and excited in the process, if indeed it happens. So I'm working on a new spec, and I'd like to finish that rough draft over the holidays and potentially start something new as well. And I'm also working on a couple of micro-budget films, a couple micro-budget scripts for the ensemble to keep us going in addition to the web series work that we're doing, and to keep keep the actors busy. And I've got some pretty neat stuff there, and I'm going to be putting some time into that over the holidays as well. A lot of folks like to go home and leave Los Angeles when the holidays are happening, and usually round about the end of Thanksgiving weekend is when people start filtering out of town and stop showing up at their day jobs, and people sort of disappear until the second week in January. And for me, it's a really good time to sort of take a step back and clean things up and make sure that all the things that I had set in front of myself as goals for the year are either finished or very well prepared to be finished at the beginning of the next year, and I'm ready to dive back in. So either I'm finishing those things, or I'm sort of clearing the decks and getting other stuff out of the way so I don't have to worry about it. I can double down on my focus as I go into the new year, and that's for sure what this holiday season is going to be for me, undoubtedly. And that leaves us with 3 minutes. 3 minutes until 7. So for the rest of my night, I'm going to head over to Republic of Pie, which is a coffee shop where I do a lot of my work. I'm going to put some attention and some work into the Loudmouth Report, which is the podcast I'm doing with Dan, my composer. I'm going to put some sound editing into, or some sound effects. I don't know what to call it. I'm going to clean up the signal on the second episode, which we recorded with VK Lynn, who's a musician, and some of our followers on this channel may know her. She's again a really, really great rock musician, and a wonderful person, and a good friend, a really good friend. So we had her on the show. We asked her a bunch of questions. We yelled about stuff together. We laughed. I'm going to clean that up, make sure that's ready to pass to Dan so that it can be put up on our SoundCloud, and then I'm going to touch up the SoundCloud page itself just a little bit and put some graphics up there. And then after that, I have some writing I want to do. But I think there's something else I need to do first. I keep a list, and I'm not looking at my phone because it's rude while I'm streaming. 6:59. Well, nobody's here. I think it is time to go and do those things. Thank you for watching this video if you're watching it after the fact. Streaming hours, office hours, are Wednesdays 6:30 to 7:30. And Hollywood office hours are Tuesdays, 6:30 to 7:30 at Tiago. And the way to find out about this stuff is to go to Facebook, and there's events. So see you on Facebook. And thank you very much for watching, and y'all have a great evening. Take good care. Bye-bye. And I'm going to, actually, I said goodbye, and then I wasn't ready to hit. Okay, now for real, goodbye.